Hello and welcome to another drive-in double feature. I'm Ryan,
I'm Nathan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into anything, we got a Patreon. Who else doesn't have a Patreon? Everyone I know has a Patreon, and we do too over at patreon.com/slash drive-in double feature podcast. I mean, look, guys, you like the sound of our voices, right? You're thinking, you know what? I'd like to hear more of that. Well, you know what? You can.
Mhm.
There's so many bonus episodes over there, hours of content over there. So
It really
head
is.
on up, head on over there and just try it out. Just see how it feels. Well, I think
Yeah.
you'll like. I think you'll like it.
Like a
But
like a nice pair of underwear. Just
yeah,
test it
just
out.
yeah, you'll break them in. But
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
check it out. It's only $5 a month. Doesn't affect any regular content. But today we're going to be talking about 1962's Pressure Point, and that is directed by Hubert Cornfield. Now, what a classic director he was.
Oh, I love
So
Hubert Cornfield. I do have to say, you picked two movies that have similarities 2 weeks in a row.
I didn't realize it until afterwards because I'd been wanting to see both of them for a really long time, and
Mhm.
it just so happened, this one became available at the Criterion Channel. So like, I definitely got to watch that. But this movie is like so much like the other one. It's portrays two, um, I guess, psychopaths. I guess you want to say that, or just really sadistic people. Where one guy is more so a loner and hates women and uses a gun to take them out. This other guy is real. I guess you could say like real manipulator or
Mm.
like somebody who's just been kind of beaten around by society. And the other one hated women. This guy really, really hates everybody that's not white.
Yeah, huge racist, like insane. Also, I Stanley Kramer produced both of these movies, and they're 10 years apart, which I think is really interesting. But yeah, no, this guy, he doesn't say his opinions on women, but I don't think he likes women much either.
I think they do say something about they do say something because it's revealed. I mean, we're jumping ahead, but like it's revealed that he's got like his father abused him.
Mm,
So they do say something like that's what he would do with women. Like he's like, oh yeah, you like the only thing is abuse, and that's how you like portray. That's where your violent tendencies
mm.
form from. But the main plot of this movie is really just a kind of like a back and forth battle between a doctor, which is played by Sidney Poitier, and the patient, which is played by Bobby Darin. One interesting thing about this movie is that nobody in this movie has a name. Like they don't ever refer to anybody
You're actually right.
with
I
an
didn't realize
with
that.
with a name. Like even in the credits, when you look at the credits for this movie, it just says doctor, patient. So they don't
Interesting.
ever try to humanize any of these people. It's just it's just two battle of the wit, or not battle of the wits. I guess just one trying to unlock the trauma of this guy's head and figure out why exactly he's the way he is.
But what about Columbo when he shows up? I know his name.
I was so stoked to see Columbo. I was just like, oh man, this is gonna be good. I
Oh, my
started
favorite.
rubbing
This
my
is this is my favorite
start.
Columbo TV movie.
I it's so fun. I do watch a lot of Columbo. That's not a bit.
Mhm.
He does so many Columbo mannerisms in this one. Like he does like he holds up his hands and
Yep.
everything, and does his little mannerisms that Columbo does. So it's like, oh, I could see some of the
Yeah.
Columbo peeking out a little bit there.
But it's so funny that Peter Falk is in this movie, and I knew immediately he wasn't going to be in this movie at all because the opening credits it says special guest star Peter Falk, like it's like it's a TV show.
Yeah, I mean his screen time. He's there the very beginning of the movie and the very end of the movie, and it's
Yeah.
I mean his screen time amounts to it's about 5 minutes or
Yeah.
whatever. So
He's just there to frame the movie because, he's upset about somebody that he's treating. So, he goes into I guess he's the chief psychiatrist now. And it's just like, hey, I'm gonna quit. And Sidney's over here and he's like, I quit once. And then,
yeah,
flashback to the actual movie.
well, that's like I mean, obviously, since the guy is a racist, race plays a really big part of this movie.
Yes,
So
yeah.
I mean, that's the starting point for the movie is that Peter Falk, he's a white man and
Uh-huh.
he is treating a black patient, and that's kind of like he's kind of like I can't get through to this guy. He's
Mhm.
black, you got other black psychiatrists, like you need to
Mhm.
let them help him, not me. I can't get through to him, but and that's kind of what like Sidney Poitier is like. Oh, something similar happened to me once,
Let me
and
tell you about it for the next 80 minutes, real quick.
yeah, yeah. Let me just run through this whole ordeal, uh, and that's kind of that's where we get into the starting point is that they do flashback. So what I'm guessing is because they do have Sidney Poitier and like gray hair when we
Mhm.
see him, so he's obviously older. So I'm guessing that scene that we see in the very beginning of the movie is current times, and then this
Yeah.
movie goes back in time when Nazis, spoiler, sorry, is a lot more prevalent. Um,
Yeah, it's pre-World War II, right? Like it's the
yeah,
rise of Nazism. That's why it was like people because this movie's about practicing Nazis in America.
yeah, and that's kind of what we see because there was a time when you could be an open Nazi, and
Yeah.
then like you wouldn't like I mean like they said like not like there was a bunch of Nazis that just had like a gathering at Madison Square Garden. That's a real thing that happened.
Yes,
So
yeah.
and there was over 18,000 people that attended that rally. So that's even
Hmm.
crazier to think about. At one point, there's that many open Nazis. But anyway, it this movie kind of starts out with showing the psyche of this guy, Bobby Darin's character, the patient, and kind of showing that he's got some violent tendencies,
Hmm.
um, but he's slowly just starting to lose it in his head. And there's some really cool visuals, I think, in the very beginning of the movie where it shows Bobby Darin looking into the sink, and we kind of get like a POV shot of his perspective of
Hmm.
looking into the sink, and you see like a little man trying to
Hmm.
crawl out of the sink, and it's him, and he just starts like freaking out about it, and he keeps saying he's having these nightmares, he can't sleep at all,
Hmm.
and he's basically just starting to slowly go crazier, and that's how he ends up with Sidney Portier's office.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the setup is the doctor has to tell him just has to make him better and like just right off the bat he does not like him because he's like he comes in and is laughing and he's like why do I have a black psychiatrist like we will not be able to help each other like he says racist vile things he tells him to go back to Africa he's like no I don't hate your people I hate that you're here and you need to go back that's like his whole deal for most of the movie um and like you said, the interesting visuals in the beginning, like the man in the sink, I think so. This is a movie that takes place primarily in only a few sets. Most of the time, it's in the psychiatrist's office, and it stays entertaining because it has those visual elements. It doesn't really stop there. It does some interesting things, like a lot of zoom ins. There's like the scene because we see Bobby Darin when he's a child and then like sometimes it'll swap whose voice is coming out of who so an adult voice will come out of a little boy or a little boy voice comes out of the older
Yeah,
version of him it's interesting.
yeah, there's some really artistic choices in this movie
Yeah, for what could
that
have
I
been
was
a
not.
basic movie, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was not expecting some of these things. I was
Mhm.
kind of expecting like a real bare bones, like two people conversing type of movie, and it just
Mhm.
builds up. But no, they, like you said, they show the moments where he lived in an abusive household with his father, and like they see like the thing where the office turns into like a meat freezer, and he's
Mm-hmm.
being chased by his father, and so they're kind of sitting in the room, and like you said, like the little boy's voice comes out of Bobby Darin's mouth, and
This movie is like for 1960, like early 60s. We're not in the new Hollywood yet. It's covering some dangerous ground because they talk about how this guy he says like, oh, he has sexual fantasies about hurting women and drawing blood and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, I wouldn't expect to hear about like being a sadomasochist in like one of these movies. And the meat scene where his dad forces him to chop a liver and he won't do it, so dad just like shoves it in his face. That was something.
yeah, I was really like on the edge of my seat on that scene. I was
Hmm.
because I was like, oh, this is it's pretty gripping here,
Yeah.
and then he has a mom too, and his mom's just been kind of beaten up by the father too, but
Hmm.
she kind of I don't know what the word is, like kind of puts the weight of her victimhood on him, I guess. It's very
Yeah.
much like he's having to shoulder all this, like, you're going to take care of me, aren't you? Like, your
Hmm.
father doesn't take care of me, so you're going to help, so it's like he's got even more pressure
Yeah, it's
on him.
overbearing mom week, I guess, here.
Yeah.
But this one's much worse. Because like
Yeah.
there's
Lou
there
Gehrig's mom was worse.
Yeah, Lou Gehrig's mom was horrible. No, no, but like you can tell this mother, just like you said, putting all of her pain onto him, and it's to the point where he's like, I didn't even feel bad for her. I didn't feel anything really for her.
Now, let me ask you, this might be me reading into it too much, but do you think there was like some type of like weird incestuous thing going on with him and the mom? Because like the
It
mom was
felt
like
like
having
it.
him. Yeah, because it's like she didn't love the father, but she was having like him like rub her shoulders and back rubs and things
Yeah,
like that,
yeah,
and it
and
was just kind of like speaking to him very not in a way you would speak to a child.
yeah, I think so. If you could read into it a little bit more, because there is that one scene where the father brings home just some random woman like from the street
Yeah,
who's drunk, and he's like almost sleeps with this lady in the bed while she's in the bed. And I
yeah,
think like me, and because she's sickly, she can't really leave the bed without being in pain. That kind of like I think maybe the sexual elements, like, oh, well, then I will have this weird relationship with my son who will rub my feet. And she's like, oh, you're the best. You do this so good for me.
very odd choice, but I think though that was intentional. Like,
Oh,
they
no.
wanted you to like read between the lines and see like if there is some type of weird Oedipus thing going on.
No, I agree. I don't think it's like it's weird, but for the proper reason, like it makes sense. And it's 62. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, they were having sex with each other, or so they weren't doing that, but they they weren't overt about it, which is fine. I think that makes the movie more interesting. To Because this movie is a psychological analysis of how this man became such a horrible racist to fall in with Nazis, and I think it does it well. It really shows like the downfall of him being like he can't relate to anybody. He hates the world, and he feels like he settles in well because he's being led by a horrible psychopath.
Yeah, and I mean, there's other scenes too. Like they say he manifested an imaginary friend, which turns out to be like another little boy that he kind of torments. And
Yeah, I was
again,
thinking like
that
could you imagine bullying your imaginary friends?
I know it was so weird, but I really liked it because they're out in the middle of this like barren wasteland, and like they're
Uh-huh.
just arguing with each. It's like something you would see out of like a new wave European film.
Oh yeah, it's super stylish, and it does like that interesting shot. I forget what he's holding. It's like a popsicle or a stick or something, and then like it cuts away, cuts back, and it shows him holding like a steak knife. And I was like, oh wow, and he's imagining the knife in his hand. It was no, I agree. It's very new wave. This movie feels like it was taking some of that influence. Maybe it feels a little ahead of its time. I mean, American movies would change maybe a few years after this really start to change, but it feels like the start of that, like really working up to that.
But no, you're right. I do like a lot of the new wave styles. Like you said, they take a lot of those influence, or maybe even I mean, some of these might have even been predated some of these other pre European movies. But anyway, it looks really good and refreshing. Like I said, it just kind of adds to the style of this movie.
No, I agree. And I think like I like that word refreshing. But uh, this is a pretty I guess not a dry movie. It's always interesting, but like the idea of it is pretty easy to understand. It's a psychiatrist that he hates him. I mean, he sees him for who he is. We're not really supposed to forgive him at all. Because he's like, I hate this man, and I'm going like he felt bad. He was like, oh, I don't want to send him away forever. Or no, he said, I do want to send him away forever.
Yeah, I mean, Sidney Poitier is very conflicted throughout this movie, because he does want to make his patient better, because he does have that
Hmm.
oath in him to help him out. But at the same time, with his own inner turmoil of having to help this openly racist man, and he sees him as the monster that he is, it's like,
Hmm.
okay, well, I don't really want to help him, but I feel like I'm kind of, and I have to do this.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think even the movie does a good job of manipulating you because there are points whenever he's like really trying and he's like, like I understand. Like maybe he isn't like not being racist, but he's being like thankful or grateful to him is like thank you. And then like even the doctor's like, I don't know. I think everything you're saying is BS and I do not want to give you the pass. Which I mean, this is way later in the movie, but we do find out that yeah, he wasn't a good man. He wasn't ready to be released on good behavior.
No, and it kind of plays into what the patient was saying the whole time. It's just like, because that's kind of what he was trying to say. Like that's kind of like the main message of the movie, um, is that he was like, this is what people are actually like. You think Nazism, you think this whole thing is just a fad. You think people are just gonna, like, just this is how actually people actually think, and it kind of plays into that because later in the movie, like you said, they do have him basically conning and manipulating the other doctors that he's fine, but really, he's still just as evil as he was. He can sleep better at night with it.
Exactly. He's not having his blackouts anymore because I do think the sessions worked for him and it seemed like they did. They were really digging deep. Because there's like that huge scene where he's fighting with about his dad. Because sorry, his dad is who he's envisioning in the sink, and it used to be himself in there. Didn't they say it felt like it was really interesting? The movie felt like it took place over a really long period of time. But in the end, they were like, "Oh yeah, that session only lasted a month. I only talked to him for a month, and this worked."
Yeah, no, it didn't. It seemed like much longer, but yeah, I think they only met like a couple of times, really. So it
Yeah,
wasn't. They didn't meet that many. They probably only met like 4 or 3 times. I bet.
yeah, I think so.
But
I gotta bring up the one scene where he's got a picture of the president on the wall and it's FDR and he says just because you have a cripple in the office means that you can get what you want. It's like I don't know. I thought that was funny.
I yeah, well, they talk about him and his politics, and they even mention, he's like he wants to have a violent overthrow of the entire government. And this is 1962, so
Mhm.
I'm glad in 2024 we don't ever hear about overthrowing the government. We don't ever hear
Yeah.
about that.
This is all fantasy, people.
Yeah, this I can't believe how irrelevant this movie is.
Yeah, isn't that crazy though? Like this movie is like still has like some relevance to it. It really shouldn't. Like, you think this movie is like, oh yeah, Nazism was a thing before World War II. We still have Nazis in the world. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean it is like that's I mean, to be honest, like that is like one of the things I was most like how relevant this movie still was. I mean, it's still the 1960s, but I mean there's still people in this world that think like this guy, that think
Yeah.
like, that like the whole world is out to get me because I am white and other people get their credits, and I'm still being kicked around because they said like one of the driving forces of him becoming a Nazi is that he was wanting to date this girl, but apparently her Jewish father did not want her to date this man.
Yeah, it seemed like he really liked I actually really like these scenes of him with the girl, and you really feel like there's like some change there. She has the Star of David necklace on, and she's just really nice to him. And they want to go on a date. And then like, oh man, her dad said I couldn't date her, so now I hate Jewish people. That's a quite a leap. But I guess once again, it's just like the world's beat him down. He's got to find some enemy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just kind of like, there are people like that where it's just like, okay, well, it's not my fault that I'm in this situation. It's other driving forces behind it. So I have to be mad at those driving forces.
Exactly.
But there was another scene too I definitely want to bring up where they do mention like some of his more violent tendencies, and that's when it's like him and his friends went to like this bar,
Mm-hmm.
and him and his friends start playing tic-tac-toe on the bar with a piece of chalk, and the bartender's like, hey, don't do that on my bar. If you want to do that, here's some paper, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then but then this guy's like, probably Darren's like, screw this guy, and he pulls out a knife, and then he just starts playing tic-tac-toe with the knife, and the bartender gets really mad, and he's like, and then Bobby Darin attacks him, and he's like, all right, we'll play tic-tac-toe all night long. Like, we'll give you guys some nice exercise.
Yeah, so I like this scene, but I think it's a little silly that it's tic-tac-toe. And like they dismantle the bar by like painting tic-tac-toe boards all over it. Like it's like a madhouse. And I was like, really, out of all the things, tic-tac-toe is what they came up with.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, it kind of fits with the rest of this movie though, because this is kind of like a real like abstract idea where they
I guess
just
you're
take
right.
like they take an entire bar and they just play tic-tac-toe on literally every space, and so much so they take the frightened bar owner's wife,
Mm.
and like they start playing tic-tac-toe on her face with lipstick, and then they start peeling her dress back and start playing it on her back, and then it's supposed to be like this really disturbing moment, but the most disturbing thing about this scene for me as a tic-tac-toe enthusiast is some of those opening moves they made. I'm like, come on guys, like, can you not, like, where'd you guys learn how to play tic-tac-toe?
Well, I agree. I thought it was really weird. They were playing like the worst games of tic-tac-toe. Like I played tic-tac-toe with like I don't know, like with kids that were doing better moves than this. Like it's like they didn't understand where to put it.
It's like, okay, I'm running a two-piece line here. I got two X's running vertically. Let me go put an O like in the top right hand corner. It's like,
Uh-huh.
oh, I lost, damn it. And so
Oh, dang it, buddy. You won. Like it's almost like they're giving it away. It's almost like it's not for
yeah,
them to win the game. Hmm.
well, if you're not playing tic-tac-toe to win, then why bother?
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, just little scenes like that. The one criticism I think I would say for this movie, like I can that stands out a lot for me, is they really go into the idea of like Nazism growing. Like they really dig into more of like how Nazism and evil, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, I mean that's a valid point, but
Hmm.
I'm more so interested in about this guy's psyche, and I think they spend a little too much time talking about like how Nazism is growing throughout America.
Yeah, I could see that. I didn't mind it. I kind of liked how it worked, but I do agree. I do think I guess I kind of like the history side of it, but I do agree that maybe some more time could have been spent on the psyche, getting into that, because it also gets really into the drama of like him trying the doctor trying to convince everybody like, no, he's a bad guy, he's a bad guy, where like the real power of the movie came from the abstract imagery going through his life. I guess it's interesting because it's a flashback movie with flashbacks in it. So it's like a flashback movie. So interesting.
Yeah, and this whole movie, I mean, any of those flashbacks are all told from the perspective of the patient, so we kind of get his viewpoint of those things. And
Hmm.
I really do like both performances from both of these
I
characters. I
agree.
mean, Bobby Darin and Sidney Poitier both. I mean, like, just Bobby Darin playing this real sick, sadistic guy is really good. I mean, and then Sidney Poitier, just like his line reading of some of his inner monologue, I really liked that. I mean, I
Oh
thought he
yeah.
was doing a great job.
He's great at playing pissed, and he does it very well here.
No, yeah, he's great at that stuff. I've seen him be pissed in movies. He does that well.
Yeah, always does. But no, yeah, here he's just a very stern dude. Yeah, no, he's really good in this one. Bobby Darin is I don't know what else you could say that you didn't. He plays a psychopath really well, and they're dynamic together. It's like playful, or he's being playful, and then Sidney Poitier is just like he just seems pissed the whole time, just like God, I could kill this man. I love that dynamic. It works really well.
Yeah, it's almost like a tennis match, like going back and forth.
Oh, yeah, you're right, huh? Yeah, and then when in the end, the last line when Peter when Columbo went,
Oh no.
"Come on!"
Oh, I thought you were going to say the actual line, his actual last line.
Oh
Um,
no, no.
and no, yeah, but they do show you that he did make a breakthrough. He did help that patient, and even while he did, like the patient was able to convince everyone else that he was fine. They do reveal that 10 years later he did end up being hanged in the gallows because he killed somebody later. So it's like Sidney Poitier, was proven right. Like if we just kept this man out of society, we wouldn't have had we would have had one less dead person.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually a really depressing end of the movie.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. It convinced him. It convinced Peter Falk. He's like, all right, I'll get back to it. I can keep going.
Well, what he actually says is, you know what? Next time I have my next session, I'm gonna burn a piece of cork. And I'm gonna go in wearing blackface. I'm like, no, Peter,
Don't do
stop.
that. Yeah, I know. I heard that line. I was like, oh, that seemed like a little odd to say.
I was like, oh, okay, then I guess we're doing that. But
Yeah.
sitting Poitier, he's like, sounds good.
Yeah, he said, "All right, I'll supply it to you. We'll bill it to the company."
Yeah, I'll paint the face on myself.
Yeah, luckily we don't get that scene. I don't think there's a pressure point too.
Oh man, I don't know if I can handle that, but um, no, I'll say it again. This is a very surprising movie. I was expecting it to be good, but I just wasn't expecting it to have so many
Mhm.
different angles and different shots in here that I really wasn't expecting. So I was just kind of like, expecting like a pretty basic by the book, crazy guy movie, but they really did surprise me in a lot of ways, and I give this movie a high recommendation. It's a great movie between two great actors, and with great suspense involved into it. I definitely say watch it.
I agree. It was actually a really surprising movie. Knew absolutely nothing about it going in, but it's two great performances, very tight movie. It's like I think it's under 90 minutes. Like it's solid throughout. It's always entertaining. Yeah, it's a gem of the 60s. I recommend it.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it. We're going to bring the pressure down a little bit here, and we're going to talk about what we're talking about next time, which will be what, Nathan?
All right. So Ryan, we're back at it again with Bonmara. It's that time of the month, which is crazy. I feel like we roll through these so fast. But on Tuesday, we're going to be talking about The World Is Not Enough. That one is streaming over on HBO Max. But Ryan, what are we going to be covering on Thursday?
Well, Nathan, we're going to be talking about the next Gamera movie, which will be Gamera versus Virus or Virus. I'm not really sure exactly. I think it's Virus, and that one is for free right now on Tubi. So go check that out over there. And we are looking forward to it next week, let me tell you. But if you have any thoughts and opinions on this podcast, please email us over at driveanddoublepodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on X at DIDFpod. And once again, check out the Patreon at patreon.com/driveanddoublepodcast. But until next time.
Until next time.